Yo, what's good? What's happening, Rush Nation? Welcome to episode 91 of 5 Yard College. We are only 9 episodes away from 100. Ash, I was going to do something extraordinary with that, and it just came out to number 9. It's a new week. We didn't manage to get all of the AP stuff into last week, so here we are doing the top 10 and some Heisman contenders. There is, of course, some news, and there is me being wrong in that news, so we'll get to that in a little bit. But before we get to the news, Ash, how you doing, man? How was your weekend?
Yeah, it was good. Yeah, just chilled out. Didn't really do a great deal. Watched the football on Sunday. What about you? You had a good weekend?
I went to a 5-year-old's, excuse me, a 5-year-old's birthday party. So it was unlimited candy floss, unlimited slush puppies, a bouncy castle, and hot dogs. So it was bananas. All these toddlers, 5-year-olds and toddlers running around juiced up on all the sugar you can imagine. It was something. I'm not sure whether I'm looking forward to my own child's parties when he goes to school, but that's a couple of years yet. So I've got a couple of years to. You were out Sunday, great day. The beer was on full flow. I imagine the sun was out, and the Premier League had an exciting finish.
Yeah, it did. Yeah. It was a sunny day, loads of beers, and the football wasn't half bad either. Very exciting.
Well, you can't ask for more than that on a sunny Sunday for the. So, what does that mean for you football-wise now? Is that you done pretty much soccer-wise for the season, or is there still games?
Yeah. No, we're done. We're done now till we're going to go back in sort of late July, early August. Okay. So got a nice summer break now.
Super. We Rush Nation, we've done no progress towards the 5-yard showdown. As you can imagine, Ash and I had a pretty busy weekend. So if you're watching the video, Ash has actually just got up out of his chair.
So close the window.
Don't want a harmonica incident from last week occurring.
No, exactly.
Yeah, so we will get to the 5-yard showdown. Obviously this show we had to push from last week, Ash. And as usual, there is more news. News has broken throughout the week. We'll get to Jordan Addison and me being wrong in a little bit, but we're going to start with the Pac-12, and they have announced that they'll be scrapping its 2-division format for the coming season. They will now match teams with the highest conference winning percentages in the title games after 11 seasons of matching winners from the North and the South. So the announcement came shortly after the NCAA Division I Council tossed out requirements that dictate how football conferences can determine a champion. So we might now see the best 2 teams from the Pac-12 fighting out for the championship as opposed to winners of the North and South. And it's going to be similar in the SEC, that there may be pods and stuff happening over there as well, Ash, coming in the future, right, as opposed to there being 2 sides.
Yeah, I can imagine most will follow suit with this format now. The rule has been changed. Obviously, previously it was the NCAA rule that they had to have 2 divisional winners to be able to fight out the title. Now that's been scrapped. Yeah, I can imagine most are going to follow suit with this change, basically.
Was it last week we talked about it, or did I hear somewhere else, Dash, that like of the last 11 seasons, only 5 of those or 8 of those have had teams that wouldn't have been in the top 2 had it been on record, or have I got that from somewhere else?
You got that from somewhere else.
Yeah, I think I saw when this news broke. I think it's 8 of the. And I think only 5 of the Pac-12 championship games have had the teams that were the top 2 in the records. So the other 6 games or something like that wouldn't have had the champions of each division had it been based on record. It would have been 2 from 1, I presume, or.
Yeah, okay. That makes sense.
Yeah. And it's going to be good for the playoff rankings as well, I think, isn't it? Because then the better teams will have a better chance at getting into the playoff. I'm not sure. I can't remember exactly what it was off the top of my head. But the following on from that, the Mountain West Conference have done exactly the same thing as the Pac-12 has, and they've announced that they'll be eliminating the 2-division format from 2023. The conference announced on Friday that the 2 teams with the highest winning percentage will compete in the league championship game. So the Mountain West following the Pac-12, and the best 2 teams will be fighting for the belt.
Yeah, so Pac-12 are doing it from now this season, but the Mountain West are delaying it for a year and doing it from 2023. So, I mean, yeah, it doesn't make much odds for the Pac-12, but the Mountain West are sticking with their divisions for one more year and then moving over.
Yeah,
but
let's do some. Go on.
I was just going to say, I was just going to say, I can imagine most conferences are going to follow along with this now. The rule has changed. We've had the first 2 dominoes fall. I wouldn't be surprised to see most do that by the start of the season. Whether they started this year or next year, though, is another question.
So we're going to have definitely, as always, going to Buckeye Corner now, and Ohio State head coach Ryan Day is expected to sign a new 2-year deal with the Buckeyes, Ash. It's pending approval from the school's board of trustees, but they're going to pay him a total of $9.5 million annually through till 2028. He previously made $7.6 million a year, and the new contract would move Day to tie with Michigan State's Mel Tucker as the highest paid coach in the Big Ten, and probably so it should be, considering he's the best team in the Big Ten.
Yeah, I would say so. I think once Mel Tucker got his new contracts, that probably, and all the other contracts that have happened in the last couple of seasons, I can imagine Ryan Day was probably knocking on the door saying, "Where's mine?" Rightly so.
Yep.
As you say, they're arguably the best team in the Big Ten. Obviously, last year didn't work out that way. But yeah, I'm not surprised to see him get this sort of deal. And I think that will probably put him relatively high overall in terms of paid coaches. I think from memory, Lincoln Riley's deal at USC is over 10 mil. I can't remember exactly what it is, but he's been paying more than 10 mil. Brian Kelly's just under that. He's going to be around Brian Kelly, Nick Saban what level now in terms of contract.
And that's 220. When's it? 2028?
So he had a deal till 2026 with them, and this is now an extension, 2 extra years and an extra, what is it, 1.9 mil a year, something like that.
Yeah, it's pocket change.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then finally, Ash, our last bit of news before we do dive into the top 10. Last week we talked about Jordan Addison, and now he'd gone into the portal.
Mm-hmm.
He'd worked out with Bryce Young, and you said that was pretty much all that had happened, and I said that was pretty much all that needed to happen. He was heading over there to be Bryce Young's new target. There was obviously USC and Texas in the running as well. We said that you said USC would probably be the landing spot. I said Alabama was a done deal. And lo and behold, the knowledge of the group has prevailed in the fact that Jordan Addison has announced his transfer to USC. He selected the Trojans, as I said, over Bama and Texas. He's going to join Oklahoma transfer Mario Williams and Jerry Rice's son, Brendan Rice, in a new look wide receiver room for Lane Kiffin. Not Lane Kiffin.
Lincoln Riley.
Lincoln Riley down in USC. I mean,
I'm not surprised at all. When we spoke about it last week, everything was pointing towards Texas being the favourites because he'd gone for a visit there. He'd spent extra time there. There's a couple of his ex-coaches. I thought Texas would be where he'd ended up, but I suppose looking at what USC and Lincoln Riley are already doing, that's a very interesting program to join with. That's definitely going to be on the up this year. I mean, that wide receiver room and then Caleb Williams throw into him. It's definitely going to be a team we have to look out for if they can gel quickly, which I suspect they will be able to.
Don't they have a star running back as well?
What, USC?
Yeah, didn't they have?
They got Travis Dye. They got Travis Dye from Oregon, haven't they?
And he was pretty good when called upon last year.
Yes, yeah, he was. So, yeah, they've not got many weak spots on that roster. They've done well in the portal. Obviously, Riley coming in, has brought in some recruits from this year and especially next year, 2023, when that recruitment class comes in, they've got a whole bunch of 5 stars coming in. So, yeah, we need to be on the lookout for them. That's for sure.
Yes, we do. Right. Last week, Ash, we managed to do 15 of the 25 projected teams. We've just about to hit 10 minutes into the podcast. We've only got 10 teams to talk about, but as we said last week, they are the Big Ten to talk about. So with that being said, would you like to go first or second?
I think you went first last week, so I will go first this week.
Okay.
And we are kicking off at 10 with probably the most surprising ranking, and that's Auburn from the SEC. Obviously, very up and down last year, 6 and 7, 3 and 5 in the SEC. They really struggled in the SEC against some teams, but 10 is high for me, and I think it will probably be high for most people. This is the one selection and a non-selection that really surprised me when I saw these ESPN rankings, to see Auburn at 10. I would still have them in my 25, definitely. I think they've got enough on that roster to warrant a top 25 ranking, but putting them in at 10 is incredibly high in my opinion. They've got Zach Calzada coming in from Texas A&M, the transfer. They've got TJ Finley, who is in his second year and impressed when he relieved Bo Nix last season. Tank Bigsby, obviously the running back, one of the top running backs in the class, but it's not a team that jumps out at you and you expect greatness from. Even at this early stage, in an SEC conference that's arguably the best and toughest conference in the country, I'm just really surprised to see them here.
Yeah, I just was looking at their schedule.
Yes,
they do not have an easy schedule.
I mean, even that out of conference, they've got San Jose State from the Mountain West, who are a tough team. They've shown the last couple of years that they are right up there with the other teams. And then Penn State week 3, one of the top teams in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
So they've got a horrible schedule, and they've got Western Kentucky, another out of conference game towards the end of the year. And they've shown last year how good they can be. Yes, obviously Western Kentucky lost Bailey Zapp, but there's no easy games there, barring their first game of the season against Mercer. They're in for a tough year.
Yeah,
and Brian Harson's gonna have a tough job living up to this expectation that at least ESPN are put on them.
Yeah, I mean that they, after the Penn State game, they then face Missouri, and then they face LSU, Georgia, Ole Miss, Arkansas, Mississippi.
So in terms of their, as I said about their roster, like I've mentioned Bigsby and Calzada coming in. I think the line, the offensive line, is something that needs to be addressed. It struggled at times. That definitely needs improvement this year, and I think it's I think most of if not all of them, are returning. So from last year, so they really need to take a step up. They're a good defensive side. They've got Owen Poppe, who's arguably their best linebacker now that McLean's gone. I think he'll command that defense, and they're a good unit. There's no one really that stands out when you look at the Auburn defense and goes, yeah, he's a world beater. But they're a good solid unit, so I think they'll be fine on the defensive side. It's just the offensive side that is slightly concerning outside of Bigsby, and obviously remains to be seen from whichever quarterback starts, because Zach Calzada's not locked in as the starter here. TJ Finley could win the job. He's got the experience there. They've also got they transferred an Oregon, Robbie Ashford from Oregon, the freshman. Redshirt freshman this season. He's there, and they got true freshman in Holden Gierner. So there's lots of competition for the quarterback. It's not Calzada's job at the moment. I think he's probably favourite, but there's definitely some big names there and big talent, especially from the younger guys that could step up and take his place before he even gets it.
Yeah, it's definitely something to watch going forward. It isn't locked in, like you say. The next ranking, Ash, is Pittsburgh, the Panthers at 9. Do you think this perhaps changes if this was a live ranking, if with Jordan Addison gone? Because obviously that is a big loss for the offense.
Massive.
But not only that, they've obviously lost the Pittsburgh Steelers' new quarterback in Kenny Pickett.
Yeah. Addison is a huge loss. Most definitely. I think obviously Pickett going is going to affect them. He ran this defense so well and hit alongside Addison was really the difference maker in them winning the ACC last year. But they have brought Keaton Slovis in from USC, who is a very capable quarterback. I'm not as concerned about Slovis being under center and replacing Pickett as I would have been if he hadn't gone there. Jordan Addison is a huge loss. They have got Jared Wayne, who has been Addison's number 2, who I think could step up and be their number 1. It's just what other weapons is there around them. this is now that Addison's gone. Maybe it is a bit high. I mean, yeah, it's a difficult one. They've got a young defense that performed well at times last year, but a lot of their game revolved around Pickett and Addison because their run game wasn't great. Their run game is going to have to improve if they want to not only compete for the ACC again, but justify this top 10 ranking.
Yeah, I was just going to say, we know Pitt of being a sort of defensive, run the ball kind of team. And last year was obviously very different with Kenny Pickett slinging the rock as much as he did. We don't really see such a swing in college football when a player isn't playing for the team, like Jordan Addison leaving, as we do perhaps in the NFL and winning percentage odds and stuff like that, because of how big the rosters are and, like you mentioned, people willing to step up. So I don't know whether Jordan Addison obviously is a huge loss, but is he as big a loss as perhaps the slide in the rankings may suggest? I don't know. It'll be interesting to see in a few months' time how they move and what happens with that regard.
Yeah, I don't know. I think, of course, Addison is going to be a big loss for them, but they do have some capable, as I said, backups. Jared Wayne can step up as the one. They got Muntfield, the transfer. I can't remember where they picked him up from, but Kanate Muntfield is transferred in. So they've got capable wide receivers there. And as I say, I think Keelan Slovis, he will be able to replace what Pickett gave them last year, and I think he will do just as good a job because the offensive line is good there. It's a well-run offense with the offensive coordinator as well. As long as Slovis can pick up pick up the offense quickly, I'm not too concerned. I think I'd be surprised if they finish top 10 come the end of the year in the rankings. I think they'll still compete for the ACC. There's not a great deal of competition really in that conference at the moment, barring the big guys. So I would be very surprised to not see them there again come the end of the year.
Fair enough.
8, we have Oklahoma Sooners from the Big 12. They finished 11-2 last year, 7-2 in the Big 12. Obviously, Lincoln Riley's gone, Caleb Williams and Spencer Rattler have gone. They got Brett Venables from Clemson, wasn't it? Is that?
Yep.
Yeah. So he obviously Brett Venables has come in. I like him as a head coach. I'm intrigued to see what he can do with this basically new look Oklahoma with everything they've lost. Obviously, Dylan Gabriel's transferred in from UFC. Where's Dylan Gabriel? Where did he come
UCF.
from? UCF, that's it, yeah. I love that pickup by them. I think he is a brilliant replacement for Rattler and Caleb Williams. I have absolutely no concerns about that. At UCF, he was quality. So no issues there for me at all. Obviously, yes, UCF's competition compared to what he's going to see in the Big 12 is a step up, but it still doesn't concern me. I think it's going to do him a world of good when he eventually leaves and enters the draft, because he was being highly rated at UCF. So now he's gone to Oklahoma. If he can impress this year and they can impress this year, that's going to do him a world of good. I think, obviously, wide receivers, absolutely fine. Marvin Mims, one of the best wide receivers in football at the moment. You've got Theo Weiss behind him. Drake Stoops is there as well. I'm not concerned on really any of the aspects of the offense because, yeah, there's no real concern there. They brought in who they brought in at running back from TCU. Is it TCU? Eric Gray. Where did Eric Gray come from? Is he from
Tennessee?
TCU? You might be right there.
He
came from. Yeah, they transferred in Eric Gray from Tennessee as well, who is a more than capable running back to replace Kennedy Brooks.
He's like 3 times Mr. Tennessee, I think. Mr. Football Award in Tennessee.
Yeah, I mean,
as a high school football player.
Offensively, despite what they've lost, the 2 quarterbacks, Michael Woods, Jaden Hasselwood, and Mario Williams, all the wide receivers have gone. I'm not that concerned about their offense. And to be honest, their defense is pretty. I mean, their defense struggled at times last year. That was one of the, barring obviously Spencer Rattler's struggles at the start of the year. Their defense was something that did struggle at times, in particular in their secondary. I think they've done these guys are going to be a year older now. I can't see a start like they had last year happening again. So this ranking's about right for me. There's a lot of question marks about how people are going to perform, but I'm not too concerned by them. I think this is a pretty solid area for them to be, and I'd be very surprised if we don't see them challenging for the Big 12 this year.
I actually think there's sneaky upside with Oklahoma. I think you're right in your analysis of if, what's, and maybes, but I think the offense could be really good if Mims can and Gray can stay fit and healthy, and I think the defense with Venables could be really high upside in the way Venables plays defense. So I think Oklahoma could be a sneaky upside play for even the football playoffs, perhaps, if they play well enough throughout the season.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think they are. They're definitely with a shout of that. I think you're right. Venables was one of the best, if not the best, defensive coordinators in the nation at Clemson. Yep. So he's going to pick up this defense that struggled at times last year, and I think he's going to improve what he's got there without making too many changes. They've not brought in a great deal of transfers for the defensive side,
no,
but I'm confident that he can do a job there. And yeah, we do need to look out for Oklahoma this year, definitely.
Let's go to 7, the Michigan Wolverines.
Yeah.
Playoff team last year, finally broke that duck. Got the win over the Buckeyes, Ash. We're probably not likely to see that again this season. Obviously they finished 3rd last year, a 12-2 record. But what do we think of Michigan this year compared to Michigan last year? Obviously, it was a completely new look Michigan last year. Harbaugh did a great job in revamping the staff and the way he managed the sidelines and stuff like that. But
yeah, I mean, he's had to do it again this year, though, hasn't he? With,
exactly.
Josh Gattis going to Miami, obviously him almost leaving to go to the NFL. That of course didn't happen, and he's been paid handsomely for staying. But
yeah,
that was a turbulent time as soon as the season finished for that to happen to Michigan. The staff. Sorry,
go on. I was carry on with the staff. What are you going to say?
No, I was just going to say I think as you said, the replacements last year were a marked improvement on what we saw, and they've brought in. They've got co-offensive coordinators now, haven't they, to replace Gattis? They've got Moore from Moore has been promoted, and I think have they promoted both of them?
Don't know. Probably.
Let's have a quick look. I'm pretty sure their new offensive coordinators, their co-offensive coordinators, were already there. Yeah. So Sharon Moore, the tight ends, was the tight end coach, and Matt Weiss was the quarterbacks coach. So they've stepped in as new coordinators. They've also got a new defensive coordinator as well, Jesse Minter. So again, it's all changed. It's another year of change on the staffing side, and that's before we even speak about the actual players.
I mean, Jesse Minter's got himself a serious challenge when you think you've got to replace Aiden Hutchinson and David Ajobo, and not only that, you're then replacing the safety Dax Milne. Dax Milne?
Yeah. No, Daxton Hill.
Daxton Hill, yeah. It just, when you look at the people, they could only return 3 defensive starters from the team that played so well on defense last year.
Yeah.
It's not only that, the 2 running backs have both gone as well. I just don't know how Michigan can be at 7 when you've got a team like Oklahoma at 8, which have a lot more pieces returning.
Yeah.
So with Venables, and then you've got Michigan. I think this is almost riding on the coattails of last year when, yes, all right, Cade McNamara and JJ McCarthy are both back at quarterbacks, but who else?
Yeah.
I mean,
you say they've lost the running backs, but they've obviously kept Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards, who were solid last year. I'm a massive fan of Donovan Edwards. Obviously, stepping into his second year, I think he can take a massive step up. Yeah. I think you are right. There is maybe a bit of a lot more expectation from last year. The quarterback.
Forgotten Ronnie Bell as well, obviously, with the injury he had last year.
Yeah.
He's back for his 5th year. He's taken the option to play his 5th year. That could be we could see as long as Bell rehabs from his ACL, he's one of the best receivers in college football, and that could be sneaky upside for their offense.
Yeah, I think JJ on that offense as well. I think JJ McCarthy is going to be their starter. Cade McNamara has never really taken a step forward from what we've seen from him. He's more of a game manager. But JJ McCarthy came in last year as a 5-star recruit, and he didn't really get a lot of time. He got a few plays here and there, and obviously against Georgia, he threw a touchdown pass when the game was already dead and gone. But I like what I've seen from his early tape and what he's shown at spurts already. I'm looking forward to see it. Well, as an Ohio State fan, I'm not, but as a college football fan, I am looking forward to seeing what JJ McCarthy could do when he takes over as the quarterback. In terms of the rest of it, you're right. Ronnie Bell, Cornelius Johnson's still there, wide receiver. There's some good pieces here. It is can they replace on that defense, because their defense was so good last year, and they've lost pretty much everybody. It's going to be a massive challenge for them to rebuild that. They have done well with their recruitment. They brought in Will Johnson, the DB, and Derek Moore, both 5-star recruits on the Derek Moore D end, who will hopefully try and replace Daxton Hill and obviously the 2 edges that Hutchinson and Ajobo. It's going to be difficult to do that, but bringing in those 5-star recruits is going to help. Definitely, if they can settle in quick enough. But yeah, the defensive side of it is the real big question mark, just how much they lost.
Yep.
6 is another Big 12. It's Texas Longhorns this time. Obviously, they really struggled last year, and 5-7 overall record, 3-6 in the Big 12. Despite the struggles they had last year, I'm not surprised to see them sat here. Obviously, Quinn Ewers is a massive pickup from them. He is an exceptional talent.
Yeah, but we haven't seen him play college
football. You're right, but I've seen him enough from high school to know how good a quarterback this kid can be. There's a reason that he declared early, and that Ohio State went hard to get him. It's a massive loss for Ohio, I think, in the long run. They're probably not going to be too concerned with the replacements that they've got coming in. But Quinn Ewers is an exceptional talent. He just needs to do it on the field now. Obviously, Hudson Card's still there as well. Before he got hurt last year, he had a great year. That's going to be a very intriguing battle to who is the number 1 starter for this team at quarterback. I think Hudson Card will probably start at the start of the season, but I wouldn't be surprised to see Ewers take the job pretty quickly. Maybe, I don't know, and in the preseason, and maybe we see Quinn Ewers take it the first game of the season. But it is definitely a battle. Hudson Card's the established quarterback there at the moment, so it's not going to be a case of Ewers just walking in and taking that job. That's for sure.
It could be. I was just going to say, looking at the schedule there, it could be Card starting and Ewers gets the job after week 2.
Yeah,
because don't they play Alabama in week 2? Yeah, they do. So
FX got Alabama week 2.
They might want to save the young gun until after.
Yeah, maybe it'll be a bit of a trial by fire.
Yeah.
Obviously, we're focused on the quarterback here with Quinn Ewers and Hudson Card, but I mean, this offense is stacked. Best running back in college, Bijan Robinson. I don't think anyone can argue with that. Robinson being the best running back, an absolute electric wide receiver in Xavier Worthy.
Don't no.
But Xavier Worthy is unbelievable. They transferred in Isaiah Neal from Wyoming as well, who's going to be a great number 2. It's a very it's a very exciting offense, regardless of who's under center. They've also brought in Jalal Billingsley from Alabama, the tight end, who is essentially just a massive wide receiver playing at tight end. But he has yet to live up to the expectation that was put on him. But there might be a little bit less expectation at Texas than there probably was at Alabama. So that's going to be very interesting to see how he settles in there. And they need to improve on the defense. It struggled last year. The defense was one of their key issues. A lot of these guys have come back. I think I'd hope to see improvements. The secondary, they brought in some transfers. Ryan Watts from Ohio State has come in. They already had, I can't remember what the free safety is they've got there. Let's have a look. Jaron Thompson, obviously he's still there. They also brought in Terrence Brooks as well. From where did they bring Terrence Brooks in from? Let's have a look.
It's beyond me.
I want to say Florida, but
I can't help you out here.
Sorry, no. Silly. No, sorry. They haven't brought in. I swear they brought in Terrence Brooks. I'm looking at the wrong one. Texas. There's a Terrence Brooks in Baltimore. That's why it's not showing me the right person.
Okay. Yeah, that's not even the same game, Ash.
No, I know. No, I know. Oh, sorry, he's a freshman. Sorry, yeah. So the freshman Terrence Brooks has come in. But they've got they have to improve on their defense if they want to compete in the Big 12. I'm more than happy with their offense. I think that's gonna be one of the best offenses in this conference. It's the defense that needs to take a step up this year.
Absolutely. Right, we get to number 5, and it's one of the two teams coming over to Dublin, I think, for isn't it? It's
Notre Dame.
Yeah,
Notre Dame, Northwestern is one of them. Yeah.
Yeah. That. Do you think about that, Ash? Think about tickets to that game?
Not Dublin, no.
Well,
if it was in, you've got to get a plane over there, and it's a lot of travel. If it was in the UK, probably. I'm in the middle of nowhere, remember? So to get into London takes like 4 hours. So I'll have to get up to.
But you can fly to Dublin.
I can fly from Bristol, yeah.
Yeah.
But that's still 2 hours from me. And then the flight.
Man, you are in the middle of nowhere.
I am in the middle of the sticks.
I'm worried about moving house to about 10 minutes past outside of London where I am, and you are. That is sticky.
Yeah.
So the Irish at 5 were 8th last year, 11-2 last year, had a really, really good season. Obviously, Brian Kelly, most winningest coach in Fighting Irish history, has left. They replaced him with Marcus Freeman, who did very well at the game he stood in, knows the team very well. They've brought in some important coaching additions. Look to get the most out of their skill positions, but they do face your Buckeyes week 1, Ash, and I don't know much more about the Fighting Irish from what's happened off-season. Why I know Chris Tyree, their running back, is currently injured and has not done a lot of spring training, so that's not good. But otherwise, quarterback battle, Drew Pine, Tyler Buckner, what's happening there? It's just there's a lot of question marks with this Notre Dame team.
There is. New coach, as you say, that is definitely a battle between Buckner and Pine. I don't know. It's difficult. It's really difficult to say who's going to win that job. Pine has got the extra year over Buckner in this offense, but we've seen at times that doesn't make a difference. I really couldn't tell you who's going to win out there. They lost arguably their two key pieces on the offensive side. Obviously, Kevin Austin, the wide receiver, has gone, as is Kyron Williams, the running back.
Yeah,
it's a lot of question marks on this team. I think the defense. They again, obviously, Carl Hamilton, massive loss, but they brought in Brandon Joseph from Northwestern, the safety, who I really like. He's rated highly in my initial rankings. So to be honest, I don't think they're going to miss much of a much of a beat from losing Hamilton to replacing him with Joseph. It's how can this new coach and staff gel this team and get them on their page. And as you say, Ohio State first game of the season is a tough game to start with. And it could well be the way that the setter for this year. They're not playing in Ireland this year. It's 2023 they go there. They've got the Navy. Northwestern Nebraska is this year's game.
Oh, yeah, of course. Sorry, my apologies.
Yeah, I was just looking at their schedule and couldn't see it. No, they're there next year. There's a lot of young talent on this offense and defense, but it's very question marks in a lot of areas and a new coach and staff. 5 seems high, but Notre Dame, just with the them being an independent program, it always helps them when it comes to their AP rankings, because obviously they avoid the in-conference games, but their schedule as a whole this year is actually really tough. As we've already said, they start at Ohio State, they play UNC, BYU, they have to travel to Clemson, they've got USC, they've got some big games this year. So if they can win those games, then they are deserving of this top 5 spot. But yeah, I'm not sure it's going to be a good year for Notre Dame on the face of it, with the other teams around them strengthening and these guys going through, I wouldn't say a rebuild, that's the wrong word, but a transitional year potentially.
Agree.
We are into the top 4, which if it ended now would be the college playoff teams. No real surprises here, but at number 4 is Clemson of the ACC. They finished with a 10-3 record and a 6-2 ACC record last year. As I said, really not surprised to see them here. Clemson are always one of the big teams. They've not really got many question marks, apart from maybe at the quarterback. I'm still not sold on DJ Uiagalelei. That's, he's just not really... Last year, he seemed to really struggle at times, and I was really surprised to see that. They struggled across the whole offense. They were second worst offense in the ACC last year.
Yep.
And that is crazy to hear when you hear Clemson and then second worst in the ACC in terms of offense. They have, of course, lost Brett Venables, their defensive coordinator. As I said earlier, one of the best defensive coordinators, if not the best in the nation. I'm not surprised to see them at 4. They are still one of the top teams in the country. They have got talent all over the field. Uiagalelei is a question mark, but pretty much everywhere else they've got top-tier talent. Will Shipley, the second-year running back, he had an incredible freshman year, and I expect him to take a step forward. Uiagalelei is in big trouble because they've got Cade Klubnik, the 5-star freshman, now in, and I think he's going to push him from day one. They also got Hunter Helms, the second-year quarterback, who came in, I think he was 4-star last year. So he's also there. So Uiagalelei has not got a lot of breathing room this year like he had last year. But the rest that... Sorry, go on.
No, I was going to say, I don't think he's got any. I think because of the way we've seen Dabo Swinney, Brent Venables came in and almost as part of that. Who was their offensive coordinator who left as well?
Tony Elliott.
Yeah, Tony Elliott.
Yeah.
Those two guys pretty much saved Dabo Swinney's career at Clemson. And now perhaps Venables' replacement might not do as well on defense. I think Sweeney's job... I'm not saying it's hot seat for Dabo Swinney, but I think he is tied in with how well DJ Uiagalelei does, and with the talent that is behind him, and what we're used to seeing with Clemson quarterbacks being given sort of 2-3 games, and then they are replaced by the Deshaun Watsons, by the Trevor Lawrences. I think DJ's future is he needs to start fast, he needs to start hot, and he needs to hold on to it. Otherwise, he's gone. He's going to be replaced, and we'll see him transfer out because like you say, they've got Klubnik and they've got Helms, and these two guys can play ball, and we haven't seen that from DJ last year. I mean, he only scored 9 touchdowns and threw 10 picks, They didn't surpass 27 points for average on game in the ACC or just in total in the year. So, yeah, I think his leash is incredibly short.
It is, yeah. He struggled last year. There's no doubt about it. But the offensive line, unfortunately, didn't help. Yeah, they didn't give up many sacks, but their overall pass protection was poor last year, which then in turn affected Durangulele's decision making. But they are all back this year, and hopefully they'll improve as a unit. Whichever quarterback is behind them will only benefit them. But outside of the quarterback battle, shall we call it, and the offensive line improving, the only other slight concern I have is their secondary. Obviously, they've lost Andrew Booth and Mario Goodrich, who were their top two secondaries last year. They have got some guys coming in. Andrew Wiggins and Fred Davis are now there. They're in their second year, I believe. But as a whole, the guys who are replacing those two need to step up and do it quickly, because obviously it's a whole new cornerback group now for them in terms of starters. That's the only other slight concern I have for Clemson. But I think they've got so much talent still on this roster everywhere else. Brian Breeson, the defensive tackle, is going to be probably the top defensive tackle in the class next year. And I wouldn't be surprised to see him go top 10 in the draft next year if he has another good year. Joseph Nagate, the wide receiver, already spoke about Will Shipley. There's a lot of talent still on this roster, and I think this is about right for them at this stage. Their schedule, I haven't had a look at. Let's see what their schedule's looking like, because I think that will be a big indicator. To be honest with you, it's a pretty good schedule for them this year. Obviously, they've got the in-conference games, Wake Forest, South Carolina, Miami. Obviously, they've got Notre Dame, who we spoke about earlier with Notre Dame. There's not really any games here that you are really concerning, to be honest with you. So,
well, it's very much the same schedule as the Clemson of old. I say Clemson of old. Like last year was an anomaly, really, for Clemson, and
I would say so.
We get into that point now. These top four teams, I guess maybe the top 10, but specifically these four teams we're going to be talking about. The way they recruit and the talent they bring in. Yes, they lose these star-studded names that we all know from the NFL draft and last season because they're seniors and we get to see them all, juniors or whatever. But it's the people that we don't know unless you are plugged into your recruiting and you know the 4s and 5 stars and the people that have replaced the players that have gone. It won't be until we get closer to the season and starting lineups are announced and games are underway that we really know who the replacements for those talent is. And it's because of the grind of the war machine of college football. There's names that we're going to talk about in 6 months' time that we haven't even mentioned now. So when you are one of the bigger teams, yes, you lose talent, but you replace it just as fast.
Yeah, definitely.
So Ash mentioned the Clemson Tigers at 4. At 3, we have Tom's beloved Georgia Bulldogs. They had a 14-1 record last year. Obviously ended up winning the Natty, beating Alabama in the second game they had there. Well, Georgia 3, Ash, before we get to, do you think that's fair, sliding 2 from last year? Or do you think it's a bit of a coin toss at the moment for the top 3 regardless?
I would say yes, it is a coin toss, but they're probably also taking into account the changes at Georgia. Not only, obviously, they've only brought back 2 or 3 of their starters from that defense last year, and most of them were drafted in the first round this year. And obviously, they've also got new coordinators as well, I believe. Defensive coordinators, sorry. So that defense that was so good last year under Dan Lanning, not only have they pretty much lost everybody, they've also lost Dan Lanning as well, who's gone to Oregon. They've now got Will Muschamp and I can't remember the other guy's name, but again, they've got co-defensive coordinators, but they're going to have a job on their hands. But I think they're probably here at 3 because of those changes. Now, I'm still not concerned about this defense at all because the backups that they had last year and the players that haven't left from last year are equally as good and are replacing these guys with ease, in my opinion. Jalen Carter, the defensive tackle, was an all SEC last year, and obviously he's back, so he's going to command the front defensive line. Zion Logu and Tramal Walthour, the defensive tackle and defensive ends. Nose tackle and defensive end. They're gonna easily replace Devontae Wyatt and Trayvon Walker. So in terms of the players that are stepping in on that defense, despite the changes, the guys that were there as the backups last year and the new recruits coming in this year, I don't expect this defense to really miss a beat, to be honest with you. It really does depend on, was this because of Dan Lanning? Was it how good his defense was? Or was it the players? We're going to see that in the NFL this year with the guys that have gone into the NFL, but also with these new guys that are and the guys that are returning, and obviously the new coordinators. Just so it's going to be a very interesting viewing on the defensive side. And then, of course, on the offensive side, Stetson Bennett is back. He gets a lot of disrespect compared to the quarterbacks around him, like Bryce Young, like CJ Stroud, like last year we obviously have Matt Corral, Kenny Pickett. Stetson Bennett is viewed as a piece in this offense, and I don't think that's fair because yes, he's probably not the most talented when you have those guys that I've just listed off, but he has shown that he is a more than capable quarterback that led this team to the national title and that looked good, especially in the second half of the season and especially in that championship final game. He had an unbelievable game and he's still not getting the recognition. And he's got weapons there still this year that are gonna perform for him. And if not even better, they've obviously brought in Eric Gilbert from LSU, the tight end who went everywhere before deciding on Georgia. And they've got two tight ends. Brock Bowers there as well is an incredible tight end. So
yes,
that's a brilliant double up that they've got there on tight ends that probably are going to be their key contributors on the receiving side of things. And then they've got Kendall Milton, the transfer from Michigan at running back. So he's still got the weapons there, and there's still disrespect on him. I just don't get it.
I think it's because Stetson Bennett is already penned in to be an accountant or some sort of structural engineer, and he's just people have branded him rightly or wrongly as not an NFL quarterback, and he is a college quarterback who happens to have found himself as a walk-on at Georgia and has successfully won a national championship under one of the best defenses ever, and Kirby Smart. And you're right, it's disrespect that we don't deserve to be seeing, and Stetson Bennett certainly doesn't deserve to be on the end of, but it's where we are in the world we live in, unfortunately. But yeah, I think the amount of players they've lost contributes to this ranking of 3, but it could well be the fact that the team was the making of Dan Lanning, perhaps, and Dan Lanning used what he had at his disposal. We could see the Georgia defense be exactly the same this year with their new defensive coordinators. So it's going to be an interesting one. Ash, I suppose not a twist of fate, you've managed to coup the Ohio State Buckeyes at 2.
I know. I didn't even realize that was gonna play out that way. But yeah, Ohio State are currently at 2. Obviously, last year they were 11-2, finished 8-1 in the Big Ten, and I fully see why that they are currently sat at number 2, because in the grand scheme of things, they really haven't lost that much from last year, especially in particular on the offensive side of things. Yes, Chris Olave and Wilson's gone, but you've still got Smith and Jigba, Marvin Harrison, Julian Fleming. We've got the 4-star Carrion Grays coming in at wide receiver as well. We're not going to miss Olave and Wilson. We're not. CJ Stroud is obviously is there for another year. Trayvon Henderson, the freshman last year, he shown out as everybody expected him to do in his freshman year. He's only going to get better. This offense has absolutely no concerns, in my opinion. They've lost a few of the offensive line, but the backups there are probably I don't think are going to have much concern. I'm just I can see why this ranking is at 2. The defense as a whole has to improve from last year. That was the issue that we had. It just never really seemed to get going. Now we lost our linebackers. Obviously, we've now got, I think Eichenberg is going to be the starter, along with I'm not sure who's going to be the outside. The defense needs work. We have got obviously a new defensive coordinator. That is Jim Knowles from Oklahoma State. Hopefully he can improve things, because if our defense can get up to the level that our offense showed at times last year, this second spot will be justified. And I would hope that we do see them at the national championship.
Well, if your defense can get up to the level of the offense, what equates in game on defense? Like, how many points is that giving up when you're equating to 600 yards passing on defense?
Yeah.
That would be something.
A lot.
That would be something to watch. Ohio State put 600 on someone and give absolutely nothing up. That would
be nice. Yeah. We'll see.
Well, I mean, there's absolutely no chance of my team making the college football playoffs or winning the Natty. So I do hope, Ash, that your Buckeyes can go all the way next year.
I think Jim Knowles is going to make a massive difference. Obviously, Oklahoma State were one of the best defenses last year in college football.
Yep.
Just having him there will hopefully improve this unit that we've got here. We've brought in some good freshmen. There are some good guys there. Zach Harrison, the linebacker, I think he can hopefully he can take a step up. Jack Sawyer, the 5-star recruit from last year. DJ Tualomalu, the defensive end, 5-star recruit. Both of those guys 5-star recruits from last year. I mean, the talent is there. We just need the leader. I think that because this defense shouldn't struggle like they have done at times.
No, and like you say, I don't think they will if they get a leader. And I think Jim could be that guy. Talking of leaders, Ash, we moved to number 1. Obviously, the only team we haven't mentioned so far is Alabama.
Yeah.
They have a leader in Nick Saban, who's been in the news this week with a little bit of hot water talking about recruiting and buying players and stuff. But to me, and I talked to Tom about this a little bit, it's pretty much Alabama's days of being the big player in availability and what they can offer players coming in regards to facilities, training, staff. This NIL's here now, and other teams can do exactly the same thing. So Saban's just throwing his toys out the pram because his unfair advantage has somewhat been quashed, is how I see it. But Alabama obviously lost to Georgia last year, 13-2 record, 7-1 in the SEC. They have a 79.3% chance to make the college football playoff, which is, it sounds like a big number, but I don't know how that looks in previous years, Ash. But that sounds
that's about where they
sounds fair.
Are. Yeah,
it sounds fair. When you look at what's coming back, 8 starters on defense, including possibly the best defensive footballer in college football, Will Anderson, leader in sacks and tackles for losses, Heisman winning quarterback, as we all know, Bryce Young. Alabama lose players, and then there just happens, like I mentioned, to be somebody just as good stepping in.
Yeah.
They bring in Eli Ricks from LSU at cornerback, Georgia's leading receiver, and Jermaine Burton, and Jamar Gibbs, Georgia Tech running back, transfers in as one of the best running backs in college football. So
yeah,
it's mental how they can replace.
They pretty much replaced everything they needed to replace from what they lost. And the guys that they have there that are going to be taking the step up. I think offensive line, you can maybe look at as an area to, I would be concerned. But if you had to pick something out, offensive line, obviously they lost Evan Neal and Chris Owens, the starting tackles from last year. But I mean, the guys that are stepping in their place, JC Lapham was a 5-star recruit last year. They've got another 5-star freshman, I believe, Tyler Booker, who is an early enrollee who can probably push Lapham for that starting right tackle job from day one. Now that he's in a year early, and like you say, there is no real weak points here at all. Will Anderson is the best defensive player in football. He probably needs one of his linebacker colleagues to step up to somewhere near his level, because he does pull that linebacker group through a lot of games. Hopefully Henry Toto in his senior year can live up to the expectation that was on him early year. Now there was a lot of it, and he's performed Toto to a good level, but I think more was expected from him, and he just taken a little bit off of Will Anderson to just help him more than anything. But there's just really no weak points here. I mean, wide receiver, as you say, Georgia's top wide receiver, Jermaine Burton, has transferred over. They've got Ja'Cory Brooks. They've got JoJo Earl in his second year. Both Brooks and Earl are obviously in their second years. I mean, yes, they're young and unproven, and there is no John Mechie, there's no Jameson Williams, there's no Slade Bolden, but these 3 new guys are just going to step in like nothing happened with Bryce Young throwing them the ball. It's an unbelievable unit, as Alabama is every year. Jamar Gibbs is, again, one of the top running backs in college, and he's now on one of the best rosters in college, so that's only going to help him. It's just, they're here for a reason, and no one can really argue with that, even after what Georgia did last year. I think Alabama at the moment are number one, and they're number one for a reason.
Yep. I think it is a coin toss between the top 3, as I mentioned, but I think more often than not that coin lands on Alabama at the moment, and we'll have to see what happens when the pigskin is finally let loose again.
Well, let's have a look at, because we haven't looked at the schedule for Alabama or Ohio State. So
I seem to think Alabama's schedule is pretty cupcakey.
So we'll do Ohio State as the second first. So obviously, we mentioned earlier they face Week 1 Notre Dame. That's a huge game. It's another year where we've got a massive game to start, which can dictate how our season goes. Obviously, Oregon last year, which we ended up losing. So we start with Ohio State. We've got out of state against Arkansas State. Barring that, obviously it's all in-state the Big Ten, so none of those are easy games. All of our 3 out-of-state games, out-of-conference games, are the first 3 games of this season, which is Toledo, Arkansas State, and Notre Dame. So obviously the Big Ten is always going to be a challenge. But Alabama's, you're probably right there. They start at Utah State, Texas, which you spoke about earlier, LA, Monroe, and then obviously it's the SEC games: Vanderbilt, Arkansas, Texas A&M, Tennessee.
I mean, it's not cupcakes. Maybe
it's not cupcake. No, they got Austin Peay near the end as well. They're fortunate that they're at home for most of the big ones. Yeah. No real concerns there. Let's be honest.
No. So that was it. That was the top 10, ladies and gentlemen, and we managed to squeeze it in. Although Ash, quite rightly so, after the podcast last week, you asked me to try and think of a team that had been completely neglected from the top 25, and I couldn't think of it until you told me, and then I just wanted to slap myself repeatedly because how did I miss that? Well, Ash, who's missing from this list, and why are they missing?
Yeah, so USC are not in ESPN's initial top 25. Now, that's not saying that they're not in anybody's, because they are in other people's, and they are quite high in some people's. I couldn't believe that they weren't in this, and to be honest, that they weren't in the top 10. I think, yes, it's a new head coach. It's a very changed team, but come on. I think...
Do we think that this article on ESPN has been written for some time? Somebody's made slight adjustments until published. Has been published, and then somebody said, "Hey, John, what about USC?"
Yeah, maybe. But yeah, it's crazy. I mean, for me, USC jumped straight into the top 10. And to be honest with you, I would have them. I'd be hard pressed not to put them above anybody outside of the top 4. I would quite comfortably put them in at 5. Just on face value, just on what they brought in. Lincoln Riley as their head coach. What they already had there. I would. I mean, Drake London's gone. Drake Jackson, the linebacker's gone, but
Jordan Addison replaces Drake
London.
Yeah,
exactly. And then you've got Caleb Williams, Travis Dye, who we spoke about earlier. I mean,
goes on and on and on and on.
They're 5 for me. If I was doing my own rankings, they're 100%, and they're pushing Clemson. It's just the unknown at the moment that would keep me from putting them in the top 4. I think the top 3 is set at the moment, regardless of what order you want to put them in. Alabama, Ohio State, and Georgia are the top 3, and then there's maybe a few teams behind them that you can argue for that 4th spot. But USC are 100% in there. I couldn't believe when they weren't in there. That's another reason why I picked it as well. Obviously, the fact it's ESPN, it's one of the big networks and the big dogs in the game, and the fact that USC went in there, I thought we had to get it.
Come on, ESPN, what are you doing? Right, Ash, we are going to be covering some of the best players in college football in the coming week or two. Yeah. There's Heisman favourites. The odds are out. Where are these odds from, Ash?
These are from the MGM. So the main, okay. I looked at 4 or 5 of the biggest American betting places, and this is sort of this is whereabouts most of them are. The only real changes are once you get to the guys that are 30 plus. The top 4 are the top 3 in particular are pretty much, this is what their current odds are.
It's always a quarterback battle, as we well know. It's very rare does a skill position win this. We're going to be talking about these players in great depth in the coming weeks, Ash. But we're going to do how many's here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
16.
6. 16.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a second page. All right, cool.
I went down to I did up to 50 to 1 odds, because I think they've all maybe bar. There's probably a couple in there that are a bit long shot, but they all deserve a mention, especially some of the ones that are a bit lower down. So I thought I'd chuck them all in there. But we're not going to go into any details, listeners, on these, because, as I say, we're going to do our top 50 or however many players it is in the next week or two. So just wanted to get what the current Heisman favourites are, and maybe when we do those top 50s, we can have a look at what the latest odds are, because they may have changed.
Yeah, I like that. So shall I just read this list out, Ash, and then we can... So how many did you say, Ash? 16?
Mm-hmm.
16. Okay, so at 16, and one of my favourites, if you like a long shot bet, is Jackson Smith and Jigba. He's 50 to 1. If a wide receiver is going to win it, he's got just as good a chance as anybody else, in my opinion. 50 to 1 is pretty good. Will Anderson Jr., the Alabama linebacker, is also 50 to 1, but linebackers don't win it. So sorry, Will. He had a shout to win it last year, let's be honest. Yeah. AR 15, Anthony Richardson, Florida's quarterback, is also 50 to 1. Jarek Broussard? Jarek Broussard, Michigan's running back, 50 to 1.
Yeah.
Keaton Slovis is Pittsburgh's quarterback. He is also 50 to 1. Trayvon Henderson, the Buckeyes running back, also 50 to 1. Quinn Ewers at 40 to 1, Texas's potential quarterback starter. And if he doesn't start, can he win the Heisman if you don't play every game? Let's see about that. Spencer Rattler is still in the Heisman list after last year. South Carolina's new quarterback is 40 to 1. Oklahoma's new quarterback, Dylan Gabriel, is also 40 to 1. I don't hate that. Now we come to our highest skill position player. That is Bijan Robinson, Texas running back, 35 to 1. Jackson Dart, Ole Miss's quarterback, 30 to 1. One of my favorite players for the upcoming season, Tyler Van Dyke, Miami's quarterback, is also 30 to 1. Surprisingly, DJ Uiagalelei is 25 to 1. And if you don't know who he is the Clemson quarterback. Caleb Williams. So USC might not have made ESPN's top 25, but they've made the top 3 of the Heisman favorites. Caleb Williams, USC quarterback, is 12-1. Surprisingly, Bryce Young comes in second. Alabama's quarterback, if you have been living under a rock and only listened to the last 8 minutes of this podcast, he's 4-1. And your boy, CJ Stroud, Buckeyes quarterback, 5-2.
So if you were to look back at last episodes, Doc, Bryce Young was the favourite. This has changed this week that CJ Stroud is now the favourite. They've essentially, so CJ Stroud was, I think, 3-1. And Bryce Young was 5-2, and it's now flipped. I'm just having a look at it now. So Bryce Young was 2-1, CJ Stroud was 7-2, Caleb Williams 10-1, and it's now obviously
Bryce Young has doubled.
Yeah.
Wow.
Don't know why. I've not seen anything to tell me why that Bryce Young's odds have doubled and CJ Stroud's now the favourite. But yeah, maybe Saban has obviously made enemies everywhere, and Bryce Young's odds has been affected. But I mean, probably worth putting a bit of money on it if that's the case.
Yeah, definitely 4-1. Did Bryce Young win it last year, Ash?
Yes.
Has anyone ever won back-to-back Heisman trophies?
Let's have a look.
For those on the audio version, Ash is now feverishly typing into his computer.
I don't think so. Oh, it's only ever been done twice.
Yes, this is the kind of stat we like here at 5 Yard College. Who was it?
Archie Mason Griffin is was the first. Give me a proper. It's like I've seen it's him, but now he was Ohio State running back, 1974 and 1977, and he is the first and to date only player to take home a Heisman back to back.
Wait, he did it when?
He did it back to back in 74, 75.
I'm pretty sure you said 74, 77, which is why I questioned when
Sorry,
you said
74, 75, yeah. Is he the only one to win it twice as well?
Well, I mean, the likelihood is if you win it twice, you win it back to back. Because I'm assuming you join the NFL after that.
Yeah, he's the only one to win it twice. So yeah, but Young could well do that.
How good would that be?
Yeah,
that would be something for us to see in our lifetimes because it's obviously very, very rare. Ash, as we mentioned,
that Sorry, I was just going to say it's not often that the Heisman winner stays around, though, is it? That's one of the reasons you don't often see a back-to-backer.
I wonder what percentage of quarterbacks who win the Heisman go on to declare for the NFL draft or are in the NFL draft the following
season. Shall I add that to my transfer and start in the NFL from last week?
You are going to be able to write a short book of all these interesting tidbits from.
What was it? QBs to win the Heisman.
And then declare what percentage. That's an interesting.
Cool. All right.
If you are a regular listener of 5 Yard College, you will know that past the hour mark, Ash and I start to talk about nonsense when it gets to the end of the podcast.
And that's when we know it's time to wrap up.
Yeah, we are blessed this week. Rob has been feverishly working away in the video editing suite and has provided us with a little outro video, Ash. So I will be playing that at the end of the podcast. Lovely. If you are new to listening, welcome to 5 Yard College. We appreciate you. And if you're watching, don't forget to hit the like, subscribe, and bell button so you know when Ash and I are pinging up on your broadcast devices, whether you be streaming us to your 55-inch tellies or watching us on your commute home. We thank you from the bottom of our hearts because without you, we couldn't be doing this, right, my man?
Yes, yeah, it is all down to you guys, and we enjoy it, and we're glad that you guys enjoy it and let us carry on doing this.
Exactly that. So Ash, enjoy the. What are we doing? Tell you what, I'll talk to you about that later on. Enjoy the rest of your week, my man. Rush Nation. Don't forget to head over to the website. There's articles dropping at a ferocious rate over there right now. There's writers from the 4 corners of the universe. It appears so. Content is absolutely flying out. The Dynasty ranks, I know this isn't a fantasy pod, but the Dynasty ranks will be coming out very, very soon once WordPress sorts its life out. But until then, Rush Nation, Saturdays, of a rushing 2.